Hey everybody, it's James here from NeuralNet Games, and today we're talking about Prosperity 1 items, and we're going to rank them all. I'm going to put them into tiers S, A, B, C, and D. Before we get to that though, I just want to explain one thing. I'm not using Tiermaker. Why? Because it's awful now. It is so intrusive and ridiculous. There's ads all over. I tried using it. I couldn't get it to work properly. The formatting was a pain. Just everything about it was such a poor experience. I have used it before. I have a video where I rank all of the classes across Original Gloomhaven, Forgotten Circles, and Jaws of the Lion. There's a link down in the description if you want to check it out. I used it before. I can't use it anymore. And now they want my Twitter account. The only way I can create an account with Tiermaker is to give them my Twitter, and in those permissions, it's like has access to change your tweets, to tweet for you, to add and remove people. Like, I'm not giving those kind of permissions to another company to do a tier list. So I'm going to do this tier list my way. So what does S mean? S is just overpowered. It's the best. A, good and powerful, but not, game breaking. B, just, kind of standard, good stuff, useful most of the time. C, not as good or, situationally useful. And then D, mostly sucks. I think those are pretty standard rankings. If you have any questions, make sure comment below, let me know, and let's get started with D tier. Okay, before we start D tier, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on these items. I have another series. It's called my item discussion series. I go through every item in detail, how they work, combos, what classes they work with, all kinds of interesting stuff. I'll put a link down in the description. So if you're looking for more info on how the item works, that's where you're going to get it. So let's start off with leather armor. It's just no good. That's why it's at D tier. I almost considered putting an E tier just for leather armor. I mean, giving you disadvantage. It's not even as good as the heater shield that gives you one shield automatically, because what if a monster's already muddled? Then the disadvantage doesn't come into play. And there's lots of ways to give monsters disadvantage. It's just not very good. Next is the heater shield. Preventing 1 damage, each time. It's not that good, and there's opportunity cost. Leather armor has the same thing too. The opportunity cost is you can't play another hand item there, and so heater shield is no good. And then our final item at D is the poison dagger. Remember, the poison applies after the attack, so you've got to get in, melee attack them, then you apply the poison. I mean, it's a cheap item, but it's still just not very good, and that's why it's at D. Okay, let's do level C. The first one's going to get complicated, so stick with me. The Iron Helmet. And I almost put Iron Helmet at D. And I want to map this out for you because I see what I think are a lot of misconceptions about the Iron Helm. Lots of people think it's good when in reality, I don't think it's very good at all. So let's quickly talk attack modifier deck math. We've got 2 cards that cause reshuffles, our ×2 and our miss. This drastically alters the math of how often we draw these cards, and I couldn't find it. I scoured literally for over an hour trying to find this thread. I believe it was on Board Game Geek, where a guy ran simulations of how often you draw a ×2 or a miss, and I believe it was every 13 times. I'm 99% sure, but I really wanted to have a link to the article so I could show people without having to trust me. But I think the guy ran over 10,000 simulations, and it came out to 1 in 13. So that means, on average, every 13 times the monster attacks, the monsters attack, a ×2 is going to be pulled. This means that it rarely procs. If you're in a 4-player party, you may not even be the person that 1 in 13 chance hits, right? And so there's a very low probability of this taking effect. And let's just go with 1 in 13 to start. right? So 1 in 13 times you get hit by a ×2. Let's say the monster attack is worth 4, right? It could be worth even 6 and it still wouldn't be worth it. But I think at lower levels, when you're using the Iron Helm, the average monster attack is going to be 4 damage. That's even higher than like a level 1 monster average attack. It's probably like a level 3 monster average attack. And so 4 damage per attack. On average, you have to get attacked 13 times. That's going to be 52 damage. Out of that, 1 time it works to prevent 4 damage because it's ×2. It doesn't even prevent all the damage. It just counts it as a +0. So 13 attacks, 1 time it works, 4 damage mitigation on average. Even if it was up to 6, it would... Even if monsters did 6 damage, it still wouldn't be worth it. Yes, there are some intangibles where, you know, it stops you from taking a massive amount of damage and thereby not losing cards to mitigate that damage. But still, overall, statistically, it is actually pretty terrible. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on that. If there's anything you think I've missed or misinterpreted, let me know. But every way I look at it, the Iron Helmet sucks. Yet I see other people in the community saying it's good. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. Okay, let's move on. Next is Wing Shoes. They're a C tier because they're useful and good for some classes. But for others, they're just not really that good. They've got a decent effect for, you know, like a melee attacker who needs to be in position and already has some good move and, you know, doesn't really need the +2 from like something like the Boots of Striding. And then at C, we've got the Minor Healing Potion. It's better than the Heater Shield because I think, you know, unless you're really spec'd out for the Heater Shield and you long rest a lot, you're not very often going to get much more than 3 damage. And the reason it's a higher tier than the Heater Shield is opportunity cost. At level 9, you can have 5 small item slots, whereas you only have 2 hand slots. And so taking one of those up at the Heater Shield, even if the effects are equal, the Minor Stamina Potion is better because, you know, there's more slots and so it takes up a lower percentage of the available slots. And also, it's actually easier to refresh a consumed small item. So, you know, that increases the power of a small item even a little bit more. Okay, let's talk B tier. First, at B tier, we've got Boots of Striding. These boots, they add +2 move. They're going to be useful for virtually any class, and they're just a good, solid, all-around item that can make your life easier. Next, we've got Hide Armor. And the reason it's at B is because for classes that have ignore negative item effects, it's probably an A. Maybe that's controversial. And for classes that can't ignore negative item effects, it's probably a C. So I guess B for the middle. I explained in one of my other videos why having 2 charges on Hide Armor isn't necessarily bad. In some ways, 2 charges can be good, so make sure you go and check that video out. Anyways, I believe that it's B tier for those reasons. And then the Piercing Bow, it really helps ranged classes punch through armor, and anyone who's got, you know, a bunch of ranged multi-target attacks, very good for. It's a bit situational, so it could almost maybe move to C because some classes it's not useful for, but I think for the classes that can use it, it's really good, so it's close to a B. I'm curious on your thoughts on that one as well. Make sure and comment. And then finally, we have the Minor Power Potion. It's kind of the same situation. It's like between a C and a B for me. I didn't want to put everything into C and just take the easy way out. Because lots of these you could kind of just say, well, yeah, good for this class, but not good for this class. And, you know, kind of slot them into C. But I think the Power Potion, damage... You know, damage is king in Gloomhaven. When killing monsters faster is always the #1 path to success, and so I think Power Potion being able to add quite a bit of damage and have low opportunity cost because it's a small item makes it a B. Okay, before we get to A tier items, I just want to let you know I've started a Patreon. I've got all kinds of cool benefits in there. You know, come and watch exclusive campaign plays, play games with me, you know, voting power, all that good stuff, early access to videos. And if you're enjoying my videos and you're like, hey, how do I support this guy? This is the #1 way you can support me. It's very inexpensive. It's like $2 for the lowest tier. So, go ahead and check that out. Also, I do have a Twitter account as well. I like to tweet about, board game news and funny stuff. So I'm going to put a link down in the pinned comments to both of those. All right, let's talk A tier. We got some good stuff here. Cloak of Invisibility, good for anyone. Invisibility is overpowered. It's always going to be useful, and it holds its power all the way through the game as well. Like, it scales super well. There's always going to be people that want to use it. It's good protection. It's definitely an A. It's close to S, I would say. And I debated this for a while, and I'm kind of regretting it at this moment. I'm like, should have put it in S maybe. It's close though. It's just so good. Invisibility, you can just mess with monster AI. You can block monsters in doorways. You can do so many cool things with it. And, it's not even that expensive, but it does take up a chest slot. So, there is some opportunity cost there. So, I guess it's a high A or maybe S. Again, make sure and comment. I'm really looking forward to the discussion on this. I've got, like I said, a class tier list, and that video has a ton of comments. I love the discussion on there, although I don't always answer because it's tough to, I don't want to get into too many arguments, I guess. That's my wife. I am naturally quite argumentative though. Okay, let's move on. Eagle Eye Goggles, also A tier. Especially for classes that hit a lot of targets, you can you minimize your risk of losing, which is good. That's kind of an intangible because when your plans go awry, it can kind of cause a cascade effect, right? You planned to kill a monster, you drew your miss, so it stayed alive, then it attacked your friend. He had to throw away 2 cards because, he didn't have any cards in his hand to mitigate the damage, so 2 cards out of his discard, and then it just snowballed, and the scenario went to hell in a handbasket, right? So it's got that intangible of, if you don't have rolling modifiers in your deck, you can't miss when you have advantage. And so it's really useful in that way. And then it just ups your damage output. Some modifier decks get crazy good as, classes level up, and you can be adding, +2 plus maybe even a little more damage depending on the modifier deck per attack. And so, when you're attacking 3-4 monsters and you've got advantage, you're never missing, you're adding 1, 2, 3 damage per attack, adds up pretty fast. They're cheap. They hold their value basically through the entire game. They're definitely an A tier. They're definitely not an S tier though. There was no debate. This is one of those ones I was like, slot this sucker into A, no problem. And then the next is Warhammer. And I did kind of debate this one between A and B. I think it could be a B because it is a little bit situational. It's much better for classes that have multi-target melee attacks like the Brute. The bottom of Trample, it pairs so well with that. But I think the effect is just so powerful. It just squeezes into A because you can stun, when you can stun 3 monsters with an item, and in addition to doing damage from your card and stuff like that, that's quite a powerful effect. And at Prosperity 1, I think it's an A. Overall, like if I was to just rank it in the cosmos, it's definitely a B though. Just remember, this list is just comparing Prosperity 1 versus Prosperity 1. I think, it's just, to me, it's a more fun way of doing it and provides a little more context than just trying to rank everything against everything in the ether, because there's, 8,000 situations out there and it just becomes very hard to objectively rank things. Anyways, let's move on to S. Okay, let's do the one S tier item. Probably no surprise here. It's the Minor Stamina Potion. And for those of you thinking, what is this guy insane? I am basing this on how it currently is for original Gloomhaven. If it's only 1 card, it's not S, it's probably A. But 2 cards, getting back 2 discards, is S. Because 1, it creates game-breaking combos with, I don't want to spoil it, unlockable classes. And it allows you to change your power curve. So the game of Gloomhaven is balanced around discarded cards being used once per rest cycle and lost cards generally being used once per scenario. when you alter that power curve and you get to use your best discarded card more than once, you alter that power curve. And like, I keep mentioning this because it's the most egregious example, but the Spellweaver's Inferno. Inferno, stamina potion, Inferno in a row. That is just insane, right? 2 turns in a row to Inferno to just wipe out a set of monsters. And so the minor stamina potion is the best Prosperity 1 item. For you newer players who maybe are thinking, this guy is crazy, go Google it. This is not a controversial decision. This is a generally held opinion in the community. Anyways, that's it. Let me know if you like this format. If there's any changes you'd like to see, make sure and comment. And I just wanted to say thanks for watching the video, and a special thank you to my subscribers and to my patrons. I couldn't do it without you.